5 real horror stories that happened in spring. Beneath Las Vegas, in the damp darkness of the drainage tunnels, we thought we were thrill seekers, until a growl from beyond this world hunted us back. Story 1. The Red Truck Stalker. The spring sun hung high, painting our suburban street in shades of gold and green. I was 9, all knobby knees and boundless energy, pedaling my bike with a grin that stretched ear to ear. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass and blooming lilacs, carried on a breeze that tickled my cheeks. Our neighborhood felt like a playground, rows of neat houses with swing sets and chalk-dusted sidewalks. My brother Jake, 2 years older, rode beside me, his bike wobbling as he tried to pop a wheelie. "Bet I can beat you to the corner, Em," he taunted, his voice bright with challenge. I laughed, pumping my legs harder, the world a blur of motion and joy. But then I glanced back, and my heart stuttered. A red truck, bright as a warning, crept along the street behind us, its engine a low, predatory hum. Jake didn't notice at first, too busy swerving to dodge a sprinkler spray. I slowed, my grip tightening on the handlebars, the rubber warm under my palms. The truck was wrong, too slow, too deliberate, its tinted windows swallowing the daylight. It wasn't one of our neighbor's cars, not Mr. Carson's rusty pickup or Mrs. Lee's minivan. This was a stranger, a shadow in our sunny world. "Jake," I whispered, my voice small, "look." He followed my gaze, his smirk fading. The truck kept pace, never closer, never farther, like a hunter stalking prey. My stomach twisted, a cold knot of fear I didn't understand. Jake's eyes narrowed, protective instincts kicking in. "Come on, let's cut through the alley," he said, his tone sharp, no longer playful. We veered left, tires crunching over gravel, but the truck's rumble followed, relentless. The alley was narrow, flanked by sagging fences and overgrown ivy that clawed at my sleeves. I pedaled faster, my breath hitching, the chain of my bike clanking in rhythm with my pounding heart. Jake glanced back, his face pale under his freckles. "It's still there," he muttered, and I didn't dare look. The alley spilled us onto Maple Street, closer to home, but the truck emerged too, its grille gleaming like a snarl. Panic clawed at me, sharp and raw. What did it want? Why us? I thought of stories Mom told about strangers, warnings I'd brushed off as grown-up nonsense. Now they felt real, too real. Jake grabbed my arm, yanking me toward a shortcut through Mrs. Potter's yard. "Hurry, Em," he hissed, and we tore across her lawn, bikes bouncing over roots, petals from her cherry tree swirling like snow. We burst onto our street, our house in sight, white shutters, a red door, safety. I dropped my bike on the grass, legs trembling, and Jake did the same. The truck idled at the corner, its engine a low growl, watching us. I wanted to scream, to hide, but Jake dragged me inside. "Mom," he shouted, voice cracking. Mom, Sarah to everyone else, was in the kitchen, chopping carrots, her apron dusted with flour. She looked up, her smile fading as she saw our faces. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice steady but edged with worry. I pointed out the window, words tumbling out. "There's a truck, it followed us, it's out there." Mom's eyes flicked to the street, her jaw tightening. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, slow and deliberate, but I saw the fire in her gaze, the mama bear instinct flaring. Sarah strode outside, her sneakers slapping the pavement, me and Jake trailing like scared ducklings. The truck hadn't moved, squatting at the corner like a beast waiting to pounce. "Stay here," Mom ordered, her voice ablade. She marched toward it, phone in hand, fearless in a way I couldn't fathom. The driver must have seen her coming, maybe her glare, maybe the way she held her phone like a weapon, because the truck's engine revved. Mom raised her phone, snapping a photo of the license plate, her movements quick and precise. "Got you," she muttered, loud enough for us to hear. The truck peeled out, tires screeching, leaving a cloud of exhaust and the stench of burnt rubber. Mom stood there, watching it vanish, her shoulders rigid, before turning back to us. "You're okay," she said, pulling us into a hug, but her voice shook just a little. That night, I couldn't sleep. The memory of the truck's tinted windows haunted me, blank, unreadable, like eyes that saw too much. I lay in bed, clutching my stuffed rabbit, its worn fur a small comfort. Jake was in his room across the hall, probably pretending he wasn't scared, but I'd seen his hands tremble earlier. Mom and Dad talked downstairs, their voices low and urgent. "I gave the photo to the police," Mom said, her tone clipped. "They'll look into it." Dad's reply was softer, reassuring, but I caught the worry beneath it. I stared at my ceiling, where glow-in-the-dark stars formed a fading constellation, and wondered if the truck would come back. Spring was supposed to be safe, bike rides, ice cream trucks, not this. I drifted off, uneasy, the world feeling less certain than it had that morning. 2 weeks passed, and the truck didn't return. I started to relax, convincing myself it was a fluke, a weird guy who'd moved on. Spring reclaimed its charm, dandelions speckled our lawn, and Jake and I resumed our bike races, though I stuck closer to home. Mom was stricter now, her eyes scanning the street whenever we left the house. Then, one night, I woke to a sound, a faint scraping, like metal on wood, coming from the back door. My heart leapt into my throat, the memory of the truck flooding back. I slipped out of bed, bare feet cold on the hardwood, and crept to the hall. The noise came again, sharper, insistent. Someone was trying to get in. I froze, breath shallow, fear rooting me to the spot. Then I screamed, a raw, piercing sound that shattered the silence. Dad bolted from his room, a baseball bat in hand, his face a mix of fury and fear. "Stay there, Emily," he barked, charging downstairs. Mom was already there, phone pressed to her ear, whispering to the 911 operator. I heard a crash, Dad yelling, the back door slamming, and then silence. Jake appeared beside me, his eyes wide. "What's happening?" he whispered, but I couldn't answer. Minutes later, sirens wailed, red and blue lights flashing through our windows. The police arrived, their radios crackling, and Dad came back inside, his face grim. "He ran off," he said, voice tight. "Tried to pry the door open." Mom hugged us, her arms a fortress, but I felt her tremble. I buried my face in her shoulder, the scent of her lavender shampoo grounding me. The next morning, the police came back, their faces serious. Mom sat us down, her hands clasped tight, as an officer explained. The man from the truck, the one Mom photographed, was the same one who tried to break in. "He's a bad guy," the officer said, choosing words a kid could handle. "Wanted for some serious stuff, hurting kids, trafficking. He's been dodging us for months." My stomach churned, bile rising. Trafficking? I didn't fully understand, but I knew it was evil, something that made Mom's face go pale. They'd caught his trail because of Mom's photo, though he was still out there, a ghost in a red truck. "You did good, Sarah," the officer said, but Mom just nodded, her eyes distant. I looked at Jake, his jaw set, and knew he was thinking the same thing, we'd been hunted. After that, spring didn't feel the same. I still rode my bike, but I checked over my shoulder, the joy dimmed. Jake stuck closer, his big brother swagger replaced by quiet vigilance. Mom kept her phone charged, her eyes sharper, scanning every car that passed. The lilac still bloomed, the grass still grew, but the world had shifted, its edges jagged. I'd learned something that spring, not just about danger, but about courage, about Mom's fierce love, about how a single photo could fight back against the dark. The truck was gone, but its shadow lingered, a reminder that even in sunlight, some things stalk unseen. Story 2. The Silent Family. Spring nights have a way of feeling alive, but that night, the air was heavy, pressing against my skin like a warning. I was 26, a line cook at a diner, driving home after a double shift that left my bones aching and my mind fuzzy. My beat-up sedan rattled along the backroads, headlights carving a narrow path through the dark. The road stretched past the old Pine Hill Cemetery, its iron gates barely visible through the mist curling off the ground. Crickets chirped faintly, their song drowned by the hum of my engine. I cracked the window, letting the cool, damp air slip in, scented with wet earth and pine. It was just me, the night, and the promise of my bed, until I saw them. They appeared like ghosts in my high beams, a family of 3 standing dead center in the road. A man, a woman, and a child pushing a stroller, their silhouettes stark against the black asphalt. I slammed on the brakes, tires squealing, my heart lurching into my throat. The car shuddered to a stop, maybe 10 feet from them. They didn't flinch, didn't turn, just stood there, motionless, as if they hadn't heard the screech or felt the headlights glare. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, sweat prickling my neck despite the chill. Who walks in the middle of a road at 2 a.m., no flashlights, no sound? The cemetery loomed to my left, tombstones jutting like teeth in the fog. I leaned on the horn, a sharp blast that echoed, but they didn't budge. I squinted, trying to make sense of them. The man was tall, lanky, his coat hanging loose like it belonged to someone else. The woman beside him was shorter, her hair limp and stringy, catching the light in a way that made it look wet. The child, maybe 7, clutched the stroller's handles, head bowed, too still for a kid. The stroller itself was old, its fabric frayed, wheels glinting dully. My gut twisted, a primal instinct screaming that this was wrong. "Hey!" I yelled, my voice hoarse, leaning out the window. "Move it." No response. Just silence, thick and unnatural, swallowing my words. I glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting something else to creep up, but there was only darkness. My pulse hammered, urging me to act, to do something. I eased the car forward, inching to the left, thinking I'd swerve around them. The road was narrow, barely 2 lanes, with gravel shoulders that crunched under my tires. As I moved, they turned, not fast, not startled, but slow, deliberate, like puppets on strings. Their faces caught the light, and I froze. Blank. No expression, no warmth, just eyes that glinted like glass, reflecting my headlights back at me. My breath caught, a cold sweat breaking across my skin. The child's hands tightened on the stroller, and I saw it then, the stroller was empty, its seat sagging, no blanket, no baby. My mind scrambled for explanations, maybe they were lost, maybe they were drunk, but nothing fit. They weren't right, weren't human in the way they moved, in the way they stared. Panic clawed at me, sharp and insistent. I hit the horn again, longer this time, the sound jarring in the quiet. "Get out of the way!" I shouted, my voice cracking, more plea than command. The man took a step forward, his head tilting, and the woman mirrored him, their movements synchronized, unnatural. The child stayed put, but those eyes, God, those eyes, locked on me, unblinking. I didn't think, didn't wait. I slammed the gas, yanking the wheel hard to the right. The car lurched, tires skidding on loose gravel, the smell of burnt rubber mixing with the damp air. I shot past them, close enough to hear the rustle of their clothes, a sound too soft, too wrong. My rearview mirror showed them standing there, still facing me, their heads turning to follow my taillights. I didn't stop, didn't slow, not until the cemetery was a speck in the distance and the road widened into the glow of streetlights. My hands shook on the wheel, my chest tight, like I'd forgotten how to breathe. The radio, silent until now, crackled to life, spitting static before settling on a faint country song. I turned it off, needing quiet to think, to process. What the hell were they? Drifters? Something else? The empty stroller gnawed at me, a detail that didn't add up. I'd grown up hearing stories about Pine Hill, whispers of lights in the fog, voices in the trees, but I'd laughed them off, chalked them up to bored teens and too much beer. Now, those stories felt like warnings I'd ignored. When I got home, my apartment was dark, the kind of quiet that amplifies every creak. I locked the door, checked it twice, then sank onto the couch, still in my grease-stained work shirt. The memory of their faces clung to me, those empty stares etched into my mind. I wanted to call someone, my buddy Mike, maybe, but what would I say? I saw a creepy family on the road. It sounded stupid, even to me. Instead, I grabbed a beer from the fridge, the bottle cold against my palm, and sat there, staring at the wall. The clock ticked, each second pulling me further from that moment, but not far enough. I kept seeing the stroller, its emptiness a puzzle I couldn't solve. The next day, I drove back to Pine Hill, not sure what I was looking for. The sun was out, spring in full swing, wildflowers dotting the roadside, birds flitting between trees. The cemetery looked ordinary, just rows of weathered stones and a rusty gate. I parked and walked the road, searching for signs, footprints, tire marks, anything. Nothing. The asphalt was clean, the gravel undisturbed. I asked around at the diner, casual-like, if anyone seen a family wandering at night. My coworker Jen raised an eyebrow, her ponytail bouncing as she poured coffee. You mean those ghost stories? Come on, Alex, you're tired. I forced a laugh, but her words didn't settle me. Nobody had seen them, nobody knew. Weeks later, I heard a rumor from a regular, an old guy who'd lived here forever. He leaned over his eggs, voice low, and said folks had seen odd things near Pine Hill for years, figures in the fog, gone by morning. Not saying it's ghosts, he muttered, but that place ain't right. I nodded, my throat tight, and changed the subject. I didn't drive that road again, not at night. Spring kept blooming, the world moving on, kids on bikes, barbecues, laughter, but I carried that night with me, a weight I couldn't shake. I'd seen something, or they'd seen me, and the difference felt thin, like a line drawn in mist. Now, when I close my eyes, I see them standing there, silent, watching. The man's tilted head, the woman's wet hair, the child's grip on that empty stroller. I tell myself it was just a weird night, a trick of exhaustion, but my gut knows better. Spring's supposed to be about life, growth, but out there, on that road, something else lingers, something that doesn't belong, something that watches from the dark. I lock my doors tighter now, check the shadows, and wonder if they're still out there, waiting for the next car to pass. Story 3. The Black SUV. Spring in our suburb was a riot of color, tulips bursting red and yellow, crabapple trees dripping pink petals onto sidewalks. I was 16, all legs and ambition, my sneakers pounding the pavement as I jogged through the neighborhood. Running was my escape, my rhythm, the one thing that quieted the noise of school and family drama. The air carried the sweet tang of blooming jasmine, and my earbuds pumped a steady beat, syncing with my strides. I loved these early evening runs, the sky streaked with orange, the world softening into dusk. But that spring, something shifted, a shadow crept into my routine, sleek and silent, in the form of a black SUV. The first time I saw it, I barely registered it. I was halfway through my usual loop, sweat beading on my forehead, when the vehicle rolled past, slow and deliberate. Its windows were tinted, dark as ink, reflecting the fading sunlight in a way that hid everything inside. I glanced at it, then away, assuming it was just a neighbor heading home. Our street was quiet, kids on scooters, dogs barking behind picket fences, not the kind of place where you expect trouble. But as I turned onto Elm, the SUV appeared again, idling at the corner, its engine a low purr. My stomach gave a small lurch, but I shook it off, telling myself I was paranoid. I adjusted my ponytail, the elastic damp under my fingers, and kept running. The second encounter was harder to ignore. 2 days later, same time, same route, the SUV was there again, trailing me like a storm cloud. I noticed it on Oak Street, its glossy frame gliding behind me, matching my pace. My breath hitched, and I tugged out an earbud, the music replaced by the hum of its tires. I slowed, testing it, and the SUV slowed too, keeping a steady distance. Fear prickled my skin, sharp and unfamiliar. Was it following me? Why? I scanned the street, Mrs. Harper watering her roses, a kid chalking a hopscotch grid, but no one seemed to notice. I sped up, my sneakers slapping the pavement, and took a shortcut through a park, the SUV's reflection vanishing in the playground's curved slide. At home, I locked the door, heart racing, but told myself it was a coincidence. By the third time, coincidence wasn't an option. It was a week later, the air cooler, a spring breeze rustling the maples. I'd switched routes, cutting through quieter streets, hoping to shake the uneasy feeling that clung to me. But there it was, the black SUV, lurking at the edge of my vision on Cedar Lane. My chest tightened, a mix of anger and dread. This wasn't random, it was targeting me. I stopped, hands on my knees, pretending to catch my breath while stealing glances. The SUV stopped too, its engine idling, a predator waiting for me to move. I thought of telling Mom, but she'd worry, maybe ban my runs. Instead, I memorized its shape, sleek, no plates visible, a machine built for anonymity. I ran home, checking over my shoulder, the jasmine's sweetness now cloying, tainted. I didn't tell anyone, not at first. I kept running, stubborn, refusing to let fear win. But I stayed hyper-alert, scanning every car, every shadow. My brother Max, 14 and all bravado, noticed my jumpiness. "What's with you, Lil?" he asked one night, sprawled on the couch, a comic book in hand. His dark hair flopped over his eyes, and he smirked, expecting a snarky comeback. I shrugged, picking at a loose thread on my sweatshirt. "Just tired," I lied, my voice flat. Max didn't push, but his gaze lingered, sharper than usual. I hated lying, but admitting I was scared felt like losing something, my freedom, my fire. Spring was my season, and I wouldn't let some creep steal it. The fourth encounter broke me. It was a Friday, the sky a deep lavender, fireflies just starting to blink in the yards. I was on a new route, farther from home, pushing my limits with a longer run. The SUV appeared like a specter, pulling up beside me on a quiet stretch of Birch Street. Its horn blared, a sharp, ugly sound that made me stumble. My earbuds fell out, dangling, as the driver's door cracked open. A hand reached out, big, rough, attached to a shadow inside. My blood went cold, legs rooted to the spot. "Hey, girl," a voice rasped, low and wrong. I backed away, my pulse a drum in my ears, the world narrowing to that open door. I turned to sprint, but my legs felt like lead, panic choking me. Then Max appeared, a miracle on two wheels. He was biking home from a friend's, his BMX rattling over the curb. "Lily," he shouted, his voice cutting through my haze. He saw the SUV, saw my face, and didn't hesitate. He grabbed a rock from the roadside, the size of an apple, and hurled it with all his might. It hit the SUV's windshield with a crack, spiderwebbing the glass. The driver swore, the door slammed shut, and the SUV roared off, tires screeching, leaving a trail of exhaust. Max dropped his bike, running to me. "You okay?" he gasped, his face flushed, eyes wide with a mix of fear and fury. I nodded, trembling, and clung to him, his flannel shirt smelling of sweat and grass. "Don't tell Mom," I whispered, voice breaking. He nodded, jaw tight, my protector in a moment I'd never forget. We walked home, Max pushing his bike, me clutching my phone like a lifeline. The neighborhood felt different now, its charm hollow, the tulips too bright, the fireflies mocking. At home, Mom was cooking, the kitchen warm with the scent of garlic and basil. "You're late," she said, glancing up, her smile fading as she saw us. "What happened?" Max jumped in, smooth as ever. "Just got caught up racing," he said, nudging me. I forced a grin, but Mom's eyes lingered, sensing something. Later, in my room, I sat on my bed, the quilt soft under my fingers, and replayed it all, the hand, the voice, Max's rock. I felt fragile, like glass cracked but not yet shattered. Running, my sanctuary, now felt like a trap. We called the police the next day, Max backing me up as I stammered through the story. The officer, a tired-looking woman with a notepad, listened but didn't offer much hope. No plate, no clear description. It's tough, she said, her pen tapping the page. Stay vigilant. Vigilant. The word stuck with me, heavy and useless. The SUV never came back, but its shadow lingered. I stopped running for 4 months, trading pavement for the treadmill in our basement, its hum a poor substitute for spring air. Max checked on me more, his teasing softer, his presence a quiet shield. "You'll run again," he said one day, tossing me a water bottle, his smirk half-hearted but warm. I nodded, wanting to believe him. Spring kept blooming, oblivious, kids laughed, lawns were mowed, life marched on. But I carried the fear, a weight in my chest, sharpening my senses. I noticed cars more, strangers' glances, the way dusk could hide threats. Mom never knew the full story, but she hugged me tighter, her intuition picking up what I didn't say. Max and I never spoke of it again, but the rock he threw bonded us, a silent pact. I'd run again, someday, reclaim the streets that were mine. But that spring taught me something raw: freedom comes with a cost, and even in a world of flowers and fireflies, danger can find you, silent as a black SUV. Story 4. The Creepy Campground Encounter. Spring in Oregon was a tapestry of green, the forests alive with the hum of life. I was 22, my legs strong from months of pedaling, my heart full of the wild freedom that came with biking solo from Canada to Mexico. My touring bike, loaded with panniers, cut through the coastal air, tires humming on a quiet road near a campground. The sun filtered through towering Douglas firs, dappling the asphalt with gold, while the scent of damp moss and wildflowers clung to the breeze. I felt invincible, a wanderer in a world that unfolded with every mile. That evening, I pulled into a small campground, its sign weathered, promising rest. But as I set up my tent, a man appeared, and the spring night turned sharp with unease. The campground was a clearing hugged by trees, with a handful of sites, picnic tables, fire pits, the soft rush of a nearby creek. I was pitching my tent, the nylon snapping in the wind, when I noticed him watching from the edge of the lot. He was older, maybe 60, his flannel shirt stained, his hair a greasy gray tangle under a frayed cap. His eyes, pale and unblinking, locked onto me, and a chill ran down my spine, despite the warm evening. I forced a smile, the kind you offer strangers to keep things civil, and went back to my task, hammering stakes with quick, deliberate strikes. But I felt his gaze, heavy as a hand on my shoulder, and my pulse quickened, a warning I couldn't ignore. He approached as I zipped my tent, his boots crunching on gravel, deliberate and slow. "Nice setup you got," he said, his voice gravelly, with a drawl that didn't match the Oregon coast. I stood, wiping dirt from my hands, my bike a reassuring weight beside me. "Thanks," I said, keeping my tone light, though my gut screamed caution. He stepped closer, too close, the sour tang of sweat and tobacco wafting from him. "Name's Carl," he offered, extending a hand. I hesitated, then shook it, his grip tight, lingering, his fingers curling around my palm like a trap. He didn't let go, shaking my hand again and again, his other hand clamping my forearm, his laugh a sharp, barking sound that didn't reach his eyes. My heart thudded, a caged bird against my ribs. His laugh grated, unnatural, like a machine stuck in a loop. "You're a long way from home, ain't ya?" he said, his grip tightening, his eyes glinting with something I couldn't name, hunger, maybe, or worse. I yanked my hand free, the motion sharp, my skin crawling where he'd touched me. "Just passing through," I said, stepping back, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. The campground felt smaller now, the trees looming, the creek's murmur a distant hum. I glanced at my bike, calculating how fast I could pack and ride. He tilted his head, still smiling, his teeth yellowed, uneven. "Pretty girl like you, all alone." "That's brave," he said, the words slithering, laced with a threat I felt in my bones. I forced a laugh, short and brittle, trying to diffuse the tension. "I manage," I said, turning to adjust my panniers, anything to break his stare. But he moved closer, his shadow falling over me, blocking the last of the sun. "Wanna see the trails?" he asked, pointing toward a path that vanished into the woods, dark and tangled. My stomach lurched. No way was I going there, not with him. I thought of the stories I'd heard on the road, of travelers who trusted the wrong stranger. "I'm good, thanks," I said, my voice firm, but he laughed again, that same unhinged sound, and grabbed my forearm once more, his fingers digging in. "Come on, it's nice out there," he insisted, his breath hot, his eyes too bright. Fear surged, raw and electric, but I swallowed it, channeling it into action. "Let go," I said, low and sharp, twisting my arm free with a force that surprised us both. He stumbled back, his smile faltering, and I seized the moment, swinging onto my bike. "I'm heading to the host site," I called, pedaling hard, the gravel spitting under my tires. The campground host's area was a quarter-mile away, a beacon of safety with its lit office and scattered campers. I didn't look back, but I felt him watching, his presence a weight that clung to me, heavy as the dusk settling over the trees. My breath came in short gasps, the air thick with pine and panic. The host site was a bustle of normalcy, kids roasting marshmallows, a couple laughing by a fire, the host's RV glowing with warm light. I skidded to a stop, my chest heaving, and leaned my bike against a picnic table. The host, a burly woman with a kind face, looked up from her clipboard. "You okay, hon?" she asked, her voice soft but probing. I nodded, forcing a smile, though my hands shook as I gripped my handlebars. "Just needed to check in," I lied, my voice thin. She didn't push, but her eyes flicked to the road behind me, as if sensing the shadow I'd fled. I stayed there, pretending to adjust my gear, until the last light faded, the stars piercing the sky like tiny, cold eyes. I didn't see him again, but the encounter clung to me, a stain on the freedom I'd cherished. That night, I camped near the host's RV, my tent pitched under a floodlight's glare, the creek's song now a restless murmur. Sleep eluded me, my mind replaying his laugh, his grip, the way his words twisted into threats. I thought of calling my mom, but what would I say? Some guy creeped me out. It felt small, yet massive, a violation of the trust I'd placed in the road. My knife, tucked in my pack, felt closer now, its weight a grim reassurance. I wondered who he was, a drifter, a local, something worse, and why he'd chosen me, a lone cyclist in a sea of green. The next morning, I packed early, the dawn air crisp, the forest waking with birdsong and slanting light. The campground was peaceful, deceptively so, its beauty masking the unease that lingered. I asked the host about the man, casual-like, as I paid my fee. "Older guy, flannel, kinda off," I said, describing him. She frowned, shaking her head. "Nobody like that registered," she said, her brow creasing. "You sure?" I nodded, my throat tight, and rode out, the road stretching ahead, open but not as inviting. The trees whispered, their branches swaying, and I pedaled faster, the memory of his laugh chasing me like a wind at my back. Spring kept unfurling, the coast a blur of cliffs and ocean, but I carried that night with me, a lesson etched in fear. I biked on, from Oregon to California, each mile a reclaiming of my journey, but I was warier now, my eyes sharper, my instincts honed. I avoided isolated campgrounds, stuck to busier sites, and trusted the churn in my gut when it told me to move. The man's face faded, but his laugh, sharp, unhinged, echoed in quiet moments, a reminder that freedom has ascertained, even in spring's embrace, danger can wait. I'd been so sure the world was mine, but that spring in Oregon taught me it's a wild place, beautiful and brutal, and you ride it at your own risk. Story 5. The Tunnel Mystery. Spring in Las Vegas was a fleeting thing, a whisper of mild air before the desert heat clamped down. I was 19, restless, chasing thrills with my friends in a city that never slept. That night, we decided to explore the drainage tunnels beneath the Strip, urban caves, dark and forbidden, calling to our sense of adventure. The entrance was a concrete maw near a dry wash, graffiti splashing its edges like war paint. The air smelled of dust and stale water, cool against my skin as I led the way, my flashlight beam slicing through the black. My buddies, Nate, Tara, and Sam, followed, their laughter echoing, nervous but alive. We were invincible, or so we thought, until the tunnels turned on us, and something in the dark answered back. The tunnel was a beast, wide enough for us to walk two abreast, its walls slick with grime and streaked with mineral stains. Our sneakers scuffed the gritty floor, kicking up echoes that bounced like whispers. I swung my flashlight, catching tags, skulls, names, cryptic symbols, etched by others who'd braved this underworld. Tara, always the skeptic, nudged me, her voice teasing. "This is it, Chris. Your big adventure." Her braids swung as she grinned, but her eyes darted to the shadows. Nate, lanky and quiet, clutched his phone, filming, while Sam, the Joker, mimicked a ghost's wail, his voice cracking with glee. I laughed, but my gut tightened, something about the tunnel felt off, too still, like it was holding its breath. We pushed deeper, the air growing heavier, thick with the tang of rust and decay. My flashlight caught a pile of debris, soda cans, a torn shoe, a plastic bag fluttering like a trapped moth. Then we saw it, a tent, squat and filthy, its nylon sagging under the weight of dust. Beside it, a crate held clothes, a water jug, signs of life in this dead place. I froze, my beam trembling. "Someone's living here," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Nate's camera lowered, his face pale. "Homeless, maybe," he said, but it sounded like a question. Tara stepped back, her bravado gone. "Let's go, Chris," she urged, her voice tight. Sam, for once, didn't joke, his eyes wide, reflecting my light like a deer's. Before we could move, a sound ripped through the tunnel, a scream, or maybe a growl, so raw it clawed at my nerves. It wasn't human, not quite, a guttural wail that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. My heart slammed against my ribs, and I swung my flashlight, the beam jerking across the walls. Nothing. Just the tent, the crate, the endless dark. What the hell was that? Sam hissed, his voice shaking. Tara grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "We're leaving. Now." I nodded, my mouth dry, but my legs felt heavy, like the tunnel didn't want to let us go. We turned, retracing our steps, the sound still echoing in my skull, a primal warning I couldn't shake. We moved fast, our breaths ragged, flashlights dancing like fireflies. The tunnel stretched on, its curves disorienting, the graffiti blurring into a chaotic scrawl. I kept expecting to pass the tent again, it was right there, wasn't it, but it never came. The tunnel felt wrong, shifting, like a maze rewriting itself. "This isn't the way," Nate muttered, his voice high, panicked. He was right, the walls looked different, the tags unfamiliar, the air colder. My flashlight flickered, its beam weakening, and Tara swore under her breath. "Keep moving," I said, trying to sound calm, but my chest was tight, fear coiling like a snake. Something was behind us, I felt it, a presence heavy as the dark, watching, waiting. The sound came again, closer this time, a low, guttural snarl that made my skin crawl. Sam yelped, tripping over a pipe, his flashlight clattering to the ground. I grabbed his arm, hauling him up, his face a mask of terror. "Go, go!" I shouted, and we ran, our footsteps a chaotic drumbeat, the tunnel swallowing our noise. Tara's flashlight died, plunging us into near darkness, my beam the only guide. The air grew damp, the walls narrowing, brushing my shoulders. I thought of the stories, tunnels flooding, drifters, worse, but this felt otherworldly, like we'd crossed into something's lair. My lungs burned, but I pushed on, dragging Sam, Tara and Nate close behind. Daylight was a myth, a memory, until we rounded a bend and saw it, a faint glow, the entrance, framed by stars. We sprinted, the snarl fading but never gone, a shadow at our heels. My flashlight gave out just as we stumbled into the open air, collapsing on the dry wash, gravel biting my palms. The night was warm, the city's neon hummed distant, but I shivered, my shirt soaked with sweat. Tara sobbed, quiet and sharp, while Nate stared at the tunnel, his phone forgotten. Sam, sprawled beside me, laughed, a brittle, broken sound. "We're alive," he gasped, but it wasn't a joke. I looked back at the entrance, black and silent, and felt it looking back, waiting. We didn't talk much after. We climbed into Nate's car, the seats smelling of fast food and dust, and drove to a 24-hour diner. Over greasy fries and weak coffee, we tried to piece it together. Was it an animal? Tara asked, her hands wrapped around a mug, still trembling. Nate shook his head. No animal sounds like that. Sam, quieter than I'd ever seen him, stared at his plate. And the tent, where'd it go? I had no answers, just the memory of that sound, the way the tunnel twisted. I sipped my soda, the ice clinking, and felt the weight of what we'd escaped, or what had let us go. The next day, I went back alone, in daylight, needing to understand. The entrance looked mundane, just concrete and trash, the graffiti faded under the sun. I didn't go in, just stood there, the spring breeze carrying the scent of sage and asphalt. No tent, no crate, no sign of what we'd seen. I asked a cop at a gas station, casual-like, about the tunnels. People live down there, he said, shrugging. Stay out, kid. It's dangerous. He didn't mention screams, or tunnels that moved, but his eyes said he'd heard things. I nodded, my throat tight, and left, the city's glitter feeling hollow against what I knew. Spring rolled on, Vegas pulsing with life, casinos, tourists, heat creeping in. But I stopped chasing thrills, my taste for adventure soured. Nate deleted his footage, Tara avoided me, and Sam's jokes turned brittle, like he was trying to outrun the memory. I carried it, though, the snarl, the missing tent, the tunnel's impossible shift. I'd always thought danger was loud, obvious, but that spring taught me it's subtle, hidden in the places we think we own. The tunnels were still there, under the city, waiting. And sometimes, in the quiet, I hear that sound, a reminder that some doors, once opened, don't close.